The OnePlus 13 is here, and on paper it is looking like one crazy release. But there's something not quite right about this year's device, and it stems from a seriously tricky situation that the company has found itself in. Whatever it does, it cannot get out of this one. This is the OnePlus 13 paradox. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and OnePlus has become known for a few things in recent years. Its phones are stupidly fast and always come with the fastest Qualcomm Snapdragon system on chips with loads of RAM. They come with big batteries enabling super longevity. The phones are rapid to charge via their staple red cables and powerful bricks, and OnePlus phones tend to undercut the equivalent models from Samsung, Apple and Google. So there are 4 boxes to tick there, and last year's OnePlus 12 did all of them. It had the fastest chip with loads of RAM, had a big battery, super fast charging thanks to the included brick in the box, and at $800, sure it was expensive, but it was comfortably far away enough from that 4-figure mark that it could be justified. It just so happened that the 12 had phenomenal cameras with a very potent telephoto camera in particular, and its display was brilliant too. It was one of my phones of the year last year. OnePlus has made some significant changes this year, but its total sum of all these changes is what makes the biggest impact, and unfortunately there doesn't seem to be a way to really mitigate some of the negatives without disappointing someone. The 13 comes with the fastest Qualcomm chip, now the Snapdragon 8 Elite, and is absolutely rapid. This phone can do it all from a performance perspective. App switching, split screening, browsing, gaming, all kinds of titles. The 13 ticks that box for being one absolutely rapid phone, and if you're a big mobile gamer, you are likely going to love the OnePlus 13, and not just for its display, which we'll get to a little bit later. The only thing that keeps us from being like the gaming phone right now is that it lacks those sort of physical capacitive trigger buttons that you'll find on dedicated gaming phones. But I'm not going to dock it points for that. There is an issue with the immense level of performance, and that is the cost, or at least we think. There have been reports, albeit unconfirmed ones, that the Snapdragon 8 Elite's cost was 20% more than last year's 8 Gen 3, the chip that powered the OnePlus 12. And this could explain the $100 price hike to the base model 13 over its predecessor, even if that's not one that we can all necessarily get on board with. The OnePlus 13 needed to have the biggest and best Qualcomm chip because, well, that's what OnePlus phones are. And we've seen price hikes like this from other brands too, especially in the past couple of years. This is not limited to OnePlus by any means. But it's also harder to stomach because in some regions, you don't get the charging brick in the box anymore. At least in Europe, which is the model that I have here, didn't come with a charger in the box, which is a massive disappointment because I've been a big fan of OnePlus's charging setup ever since I tried the OnePlus 3 back in the day. The fast brick in the box was a staple for years, and actually in more recent times when other phones were getting rid of it, it was a big reason to buy one of these things. And you know, whether that's because the profit margins have shrunk due to that chip cost that potentially happened, or for other factors, it's just not a guarantee to get it in the box anymore, which is a massive shame. If you already had the 100-watt brick, or you're happy to just go and buy one separately, the speed is very much still here and supported by the OnePlus 13. I've been using the OnePlus 12 brick and it charges this one absolutely rapidly. It's crazy convenient, and I recommend if you do buy this phone that you should try and get the brick if you can, because it's one of those things where once you try it, it's just so difficult to go back. The OnePlus 13's display is great. It's big, it's bright, it's fast, it's flat. I'm running out of words to describe it. I still don't think it touches the Pixel 9 Pro's panel in terms of brightness or tuning in particular, where I think OnePlus's colours can just look a little bit off compared to Google's, but don't get it twisted, this is a phenomenal display. And the 6000 mAh battery is mega. I got 2 days out of the OnePlus 13 every time I used it. I had buds connected for about 90 minutes a day, mostly Wi-Fi with some LTE and a very small amount of 5G usage, although there's not much of that in my area. And manual brightness at around 40% most of the time indoors. Outside, I'd bring up to 80%. Very rarely do you actually need to put this up to 100% because it's just so bright. Granted, this isn't with a smartwatch connected, and obviously you'd expect the battery life to drop a little bit with that, but this is still elite battery life, especially paired with that 100-watt charging if you spend the extra for that. Two of the big reasons why people didn't love last year's OnePlus 12 were the design and part of that, the display surface. So to address the former, the 13 has toned down the over-the-top aesthetic somewhat, though I'm not sold on it personally compared to last year's phone, but I also recognize this is subjective. But the big one, curved sides, they are now gone. Now with a very slight taper to the edge of the glass, like the Oppo Find X8 Pro, which basically makes swiping in with gestures just much nicer than if it was completely flat. This gets a massive thumbs up from me because ergonomically it helps, whilst also eliminating the phantom touches that you tend to get with the curved sides, especially on like the OnePlus 12. They were pretty bad. The 13 sides are now flatter at their apex, but do have a chamfer on both faces, which I found fairly uncomfortable. It felt like there was almost a lip there. It wasn't completely seamless. I can see what they were trying to do with it, but it just didn't seem executed perfectly. I'm not sure if this is a QA issue or just a design flaw, but it just didn't feel amazing in the hand, especially compared to last year's phone. But if you have a case like the first party one I have right here, this completely eliminates the issue. And actually the build quality outside of that is really nice. I love the buttons. They are so tactile and clicky, it's kind of ridiculous. And of course, having the alert slider is phenomenal. Thank you so much, OnePlus, for keeping it. But yeah, in general, this isn't one of the nicest feeling phones in the hand, I can't lie. It almost feels like it doesn't know whether it wants to be sort of tapered on the sides or completely flat, and so sits in an awkward middle ground. Oxygen OS, definitely takes inspiration from Apple in its aesthetic, which is either good or bad depending on which way you look at things. It's certainly functional, it's pretty nice looking, and with 5 years of support, it's definitely not touching the best of the best in this particular scenario, but that's still pretty respectable if you ask me. The cameras are a weird one. The 1x is the same sensor and lens that you'd have found in last year's phone. And thanks to OnePlus having nicked the lens select toggle from Apple that allows you to select 24, 28 and 35mm, you can get some really nice images with it at the standard focal lengths, and I really like that feature. However, there is definitely something afoot with the sharpening and the telephoto camera in particular, because it doesn't actually seem this year to have a periscope and instead has like a standard 3x, so kind of feels like a downgrade. It's also a lesser sensor. And I don't think this sensor is really nearly as capable as the previous generations, because when you take long shots, it adds so much artificial sharpening. The images look almost like watercolor paintings or fake at times. And mostly in lower lighting conditions, I must add, or places where there's lots of harsh contrast, sort of like text and stuff like that. The OnePlus 12's long shots might have looked a little softer, but they looked a lot more natural than this. I'm not sure if it's the early software or something, because this does seem like something that could be fixed over the long term with some software tweaks. The Hasselblad colors do feel a little bit more toned down as well, which give you a more vanilla looking image, which depending on your preferences is going to look either a good or a bad thing. I can't really comment on that for you, but for me, they just don't quite have that filmic quality that I felt like the OnePlus 12 had. And maybe the OnePlus 12's images will change via a software update coming down the line. I really hope they don't though, because well, I prefer them over the images out of this. That said, all 4 total cameras are very capable, and the video isn't awful, though you will notice at times, again, a lot of digital sharpening. It seems like the overarching theme of OnePlus's images at the moment, that everything is just like cranked up to 100. I'm not sure I like that. You'll also notice that when you zoom in past the 60 times mark in the camera app, you will see this little AI zoom ident in the corner, which actually doesn't seem to do anything. Like if I toggle it off, the images are the same. If I go below 60 or above 60 times, images look the same. So I don't know why that's there, or maybe again, a software update will fix it, because right now it doesn't seem to make a huge difference. And you know what, maybe it's just part and parcel of growing as a company. Like I feel where the OnePlus 12 was my personal pick for last year, the 13 just doesn't really hit the same highs. It's a higher price for sure, but it has harsh sides, worse telephoto camera from the off, no charger in my region. Like it's all a great phone in terms of performance, battery life, display, the alert slider is just fantastic, and that new ultrasonic fingerprint reader is way better than last year, like it's not even close. But this year, the 13 just doesn't do it for me, so I'll pass. Let me know your thoughts on the OnePlus 13 in the comments, guys. I'd love to hear them. I know this is going to be more divisive this year. Look, the 13 is a really good phone, but the 12 was just better in my opinion. That said, if you want a super fast phone that lasts ages on a charge, OnePlus 13's a phenomenal phone. Comparisons and OnePlus 13R coverage is coming soon, by the way, so stay tuned for that. Hit subscribe, and while you're down there, hit like if you enjoyed today's content. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.